Good evening, everyone. I am Bear Shimon. I am calling the March 28th meeting of the Prescott Valley Board of Adjustment to order. For the information of the public, the Board of Adjustment is an impartial body made up of residents of the town of Prescott Valley who volunteer their time and efforts and are guided by state and local rules and regulations. When you address the board, please state your name and address for the record. Only one person at a time may speak, and all remarks must be addressed to the board as a whole. I will now acknowledge, for the record, any and all town employees who are present. Monty Montgomery, Code Enforcement Supervisor, is here. Fernando Gonzalez, Community Service Director, is here. Kerry Stuti, Kelly Campbell, Administrative Support, is here. I beg your pardon. May I please ask the Secretary to call the roll?
Chairperson Shimon.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Van Boning.
Here.
Member Evans.
Here.
Member Kunish.
Here.
Member Carson.
Here.
I will now ask for the approval of the minutes of January 24th, 2022, as they are submitted.
So moved. Seconded.
May we have a voice vote?
Member Carson. Member
Yes.
Member Kunish.
Yes.
Member Evans.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Van Boning.
Yes.
Chairperson Shimon.
Yes. Are there any announcements from the staff or from my fellow board members? Hearing none, I will read into the record the first item on the agenda. It is UP 22001, upon the application of Margarita Alicinian, owner, a request for a use permit per section 1306020A8B1 of the Town of Prescott Valley Ordinance in order to operate an in-home child care business. The property is located at 4740 North Stageway Lane, Prescott Valley, Unit 19, Lot 8383, APN number 1033897. May we have the presentation from Mr. Montgomery?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. The subject property is located in Prescott Valley, Unit 19, and is currently zoned R1L Residential Single Family Limited. The applicant is requesting a use permit in order to operate an in-home child care business for 5 children. Town Code Section 1306020A8B1 allows this use to an approved use permit. The Town Code Section 1306020A8B1 allows this use in the R1L zoning district in conjunction with the use permit. Due to the facts stated, staff recommends the board approve the use permit UP 22-001 with the following conditions: that the duration of the use permit be limited to 2 years and subject to renewal at that time. That the business be limited to 5 children in the home at one time.
Have any members of the board, questions for Mr. Montgomery? I'm having a fairly hard time hearing you, and I don't know if the people behind you.
I'll bring it closer.
Thank you so very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions?
I do just have one question. I drove by the home late last week, as I did the other two, and I did notice that in the side yard there were a lot of branches from trees. Looked like maybe a tree had been trimmed and a bunch of branches piled up. And I was wondering if the owner, my concern was that if small kids are out there, it could be a hazard for them. And I was wondering if the owner had any plans before opening the business to sort of clean up and child-proof the yards.
If the business owner is present, they may reply to that.
Would you step to the podium and give us your name, please, for the record?
Hi, my name is Margarita Aslanian, and I already cleaned up. The yard is clean, but actually I'm planning to have kids inside the yard. What you see is front of the yard, and I clean up. Now is everything clean there. There's no branches anymore. I clean up, I put new grass, like for grass grows, but I'm planning to have kids when they will play inside in my house, because has a fence and is more safety for children.
Okay.
I'm not planning to play with kids in the front yard, where is the gas, where is the cars going back and forth. I'm planning to have kids inside the house and in my backyard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions from any other board members?
I did have one question. Is it just you that'll be
Yes.
caring for the children?
Yes.
No employees?
Yes, usually like when you have, how I know the rules, when you have 5 kids, you can be by yourself.
Right.
If you have 12 kids or 10 kids, you can hire people. But I'm planning to have like people who will come and give the lessons, like a music lesson, dance lesson, yoga, provide some art,
Sure.
cook. And actually, I'm a very good cooking person. Like I'm doing everything. I'm planning to do home meal food. No burgers or something. I'm planning to have a healthy food for children too.
Understood, thank you.
I've got a question. I couldn't see when I drove by, but can I assume that the entire backyard is fenced?
Yes,
The vegetation I couldn't see, so.
is fence. You can see from upstairs. You can see any place. If you go even to the behind me, the street, Look Drive, I think, you can see my fence. I have 1,000 birds and planting the. I already planted the trees and everything. I'm planning to do with kids even the yard work, like the tomatoes and grapes and everything else. I want that they grow up like in nature food. That is my plan.
Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you. I will open this to comment from the public. Is there anyone in the public who would speak? Sir?
We have a people who. Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this issue. My name is Tony Vincensis. I live at 4715 North Stageway Lane. I'm a neighbor of the applicant. I live nearby, very near her house. And I am retired. I'm home most of the time. When I moved to Arizona from Maryland, I asked the real estate agent to put me on a street that has very little traffic. I would be opposed to a child care business on my street that's going to bring additional traffic and noise into my neighborhood. Stageway Lane, some of you apparently have driven by, is a narrow street. It's not designed for on-street parking. Everybody there that lives there has at least a driveway, and most people have a garage. If a car is parked on Stageway Lane, to get around it, you have to actually drive into the opposing traffic lane, which is a safety issue. That's how narrow the street is. And when you have these child care centers, people are going to be dropping off their children, and then they're going to want to turn around to get back onto the main road. And they're going to turn around in people's driveways. Also, not everybody coming to the child care center is going to know where it is. They're going to get lost, they're going to drive up and down the street, and they're going to turn around again in people's driveways. Now, everybody in this room knows that there's development going on all over the place. Everywhere you look around here, they're building homes, they're building apartments. Very busy place. Traffic gets worse every day. Now, my street is not zoned commercial. As the man just said up here, it's residential. I'd like to see it stay residential. And I feel that the area where I live, I would like to keep peace and quiet.
Thank you for your comments.
And I would be opposed to any additional activity that's going to be brought in with a child care business.
Your opposition is noted for the record. Thank you.
And also, would it be permissible for me to submit a letter to the board, a written letter in writing? Would that be okay, or is that allowed, or?
This is the United States of America. Indeed,
Because I
indeed
would
you
like to
are
give you a letter so you
entitled.
have something in writing.
Thank you, sir.
Would that be okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
If you wish.
I want to again tell, this is, when the center, yes, is like you have few groups by 12 kids and can be 48 kids. And I am planning to have only 5. If you drive by, you see my front yard is absolutely big for parking 5 cars, is number one. The second of all, my neighbors who is really, really close to me, I mean, in my side, left side, in my back I have 2 neighbors and 2 neighbors in my front. Mr. Tommy, he lives far away and our house is face to face. We don't know even each other. He is very far. And my neighbor came to me, they give me a letter which Tony wrote, and I say, it's okay, I am welcome to come to my house. I even came to him and say, please come. I didn't ask. My neighbors call me even now, like, and ask, do you need support? I say no, but 2 of them bring letters. If you will love to read, I didn't ask anybody. They want to support me. I say, don't waste your time. If the judges decide I'm going to open my child care, I will. If you guys decide we don't need this business, I have one more question for everybody. You know we have babysitters, okay, or nanny, and people doing that in home and legal. What we prefer to do legal and pay taxes, or do illegal and have children in the same traffic? This is my question to everybody.
I thank you for your comments. We would gratefully accept the letters if you would like us to have them. And I thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would address the board?
Laura Hinton, 4721 North Stageway Lane, and I'm concerned about property values. I've been in the business in Phoenix for a while, and I've seen the neighborhoods go down with child care facilities in them. I'm concerned about the traffic. I have a special needs daughter that I am very concerned about the traffic, and she can run right out in the street, just like that without notice. And so, yeah, I'm concerned, and I'm also concerned because of the way Stageway Lane is situated. There's hills, and I'm sure those that drove by, when you live there and the mailman's here and there's a car coming down the hill, you cannot see that car, and you have to get in the opposing lane, like Tony said. It is dangerous. And then at the end, by the house that's proposed for the child care, it's right before you get to Spouse, and that hill coming down Spouse to turn on Stageway, you cannot see. And there's been several accidents there, and it's a very dangerous situation with the traffic. We have people cutting through from Glassford to get off of Glassford and skip the traffic to come down our street, which is increasing the safety of our neighborhood.
Thank you. Have we any other public comment? Good evening.
Elizabeth J. Reed. I live at 4700 Stageway Lane, next door, my neighbor. I am opposed also to the child care facility. I'm concerned with safety of children, getting in and out of the cars. I'm concerned with noise. also the traffic like the rest of my neighbors. I just don't think it's safe. And I am also concerned with property values. I just don't think it's a good idea at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment from the public? We will return the item to the board for discussion. Have I comments from any of my fellow board members? Hearing no comment, the chair will make a motion. I move based on the finding of fact presented by Officer Montgomery to allow use permit UP 22001 to be granted with the following stipulation. The duration of the use permit is limited to 2 years and subject to renewal at that time, that the business is limited to 5 children in the home at that time. I make this motion because we are here not to review how, why, or if the applicant could run a business per this request. We review zoning. This zoning is allowed in R1L, and I would ask for a second for my motion.
I second the motion.
May we have a voice vote, please?
Member Carson?
Yes.
Member Kunish?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes?
Vice Chairperson Van Boning?
Yes.
Chairperson Shimon?
Yes. The use permit is granted. We go to the second item. Would you come to the podium, please?
Yes, my name is Tony Vincensis, again for the record. Can your decision be appealed?
Yes, our decision can be appealed. Since we are a quasi-judicial body, you need to go to the Court of Appeals, the Arizona Court of Appeals.
Arizona Court of Appeals.
I believe that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The next item on the agenda, UP 22002, upon the application of James Cox, owner, a request for a zoning ordinance in order to place a manufactured home on the listed property for night watchman. The property is located at 6750 North Viewpoint Drive, Prescott Valley, APN number 103-01-141R. May we have the staff presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. The subject property is currently zoned AG agricultural. The applicant is requesting a use permit to place a manufactured home on the listed property for a night watchman. Town Code Section 1319B020B2 allows this use to an approved use permit. This site borders R1L single family to the north, C3 PAD to the west, AG to the east, and C2 PAD to the south. Town Code Section 1319B020B2 allows this use in the AG zoning district in conjunction with a use permit. Due to the facts stated, staff recommends the board approve the use permit UP 22-002 with the following conditions: that the duration of the use permit be limited to 2 years and subject to renewal at that time.
One moment, please. To the people in the corner of the room, Madam, would you be kind enough to take this discussion outside the chamber? Thank you. Mr. Montgomery, would you continue, please?
I concluded.
Major presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
I ask my fellow board members if they have any questions for Mr. Montgomery.
Couple of questions, Mr. Montgomery. The setback from the north property line has shown us 10 feet. Is that the case? Is that going to be adequate?
That is my understanding, yes.
So it would be a side yard setback.
I'm sorry?
A side yard setback.
Yes,
Also, is this building proposed to be on a permanent foundation or just staked?
I did not receive any information on the foundation. If it's a mobile manufactured, it's not required to be on a foundation if it's temporary.
So this will be a temporary use.
I was not told in which fashion the foundation would be fashioned. I'm not sure about that, but if they're here, they can comment on that as well. I'm sorry.
Okay, that would be a question then for the applicant.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions from the board? Does the applicant choose to address the board? Sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm James Cox. I reside at 6750 North Viewpoint Drive. And we planned on putting a stem wall on that just because it's kind of on a slope there and a lot of water runs down from the viewpoint. So we were going to do a stem wall. Going to do it right the way we thought was right.
Now, is this...
And actually the setback, excuse me, I don't know how it got drawn in at 10 feet, but I saw it and I was talking to our mobile setup guy and I told him we wanted to move it out to 25 feet. So it just 10 feet just seemed
a little bit more breathing room.
Exactly, yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Now, is this to be a residence for the watch people, or is it just basically a staging area for the watch people at night?
I would say it's going to be kind of a staging area. I have residences for my agricultural visa workers that come in. I have those out in Chino Valley. And I do have people that go back and forth. So I'm planning on somebody being in there every night. Hadn't quite figured out, exactly how we were going to do it.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? I think I speak for my fellow board members when I thank you for the promotion to mayor and council. Cal Palguda's not going to take this well. Have we anyone in the public who would comment on this applicant's? All right, hearing no comment from the public, I will bring the item back to the board for discussion. Do I have any items to discuss from my fellow board members? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this application, it being UP 22-002, 6750 North Viewpoint Drive, with the condition noted that it's a renewable permit after 2 years, and that the installation be further permitted through the town of Prescott Valley with Chapter 15 of the town code being the governing document.
I will second that motion. May we have a voice vote, please?
Member Carson?
Yes.
Member Kunish?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Van Boning?
Yes.
Chairperson Shimon?
Yes, the use permit is granted. We will go to the third item on the agenda, INT 22001. Upon the application of Adam Teal, owner, a request for an interpretation of the livestock definitions, excuse me, between chapters 6 and 13, as well as the conflicting provisions, different chapters of chapter 1. The property is located at 4761 North Carla Vista Drive, Prescott Valley, Unit 20, Lot 125, APN number 40222-774. May we have the staff presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. The subject property is currently zoned R1MH, residential, single-family, mobile manufactured homes. The purpose of the R1MH district is essentially the same as R1L district, except that with regard to single-family dwellings, it is intended to exclusively provide sites for mobile homes and manufactured homes for those citizens who desire to utilize this type of housing in an appropriate, safe, sanitary, and attractive environment. The applicant is requesting an interpretation of the livestock definitions between Chapters 6 and 13, as well as the conflicting provisions, different chapters of Chapter 1. Chapter 6, Purpose. The purpose of Chapter 6 is to provide general control and regulation of animals within the town limits in terms of licensing, vaccinations, kennels, and related fees. Chapter 6 also outlines the town manager's designation of employment of an animal control officer to administer and enforce the provisions of this chapter and to issue citations for violations of its provisions. Chapter 6, Livestock Definition. The Chapter 6 livestock definition reads as follows. Livestock means any horse, colt, mule, donkey, burro, ox, bull, cow, calf, hog, pig, sheep, or goat. The next section is Chapter 6, 602030, another definition, and it's domestic animals other than dogs and cats. This reads livestock and poultry except in agricultural districts as defined in section 1319B010. Livestock and poultry shall only be allowed on lots which are 1 acre or larger in size and shall be limited to 2 such animals per acre except for the following. No animals shall be allowed in the town of Prescott Valley in contravention of existing restrictive covenants. And B, livestock, poultry, and domestic rabbits at large. No owner of livestock, poultry, or domestic rabbits or other person entrusted with their care shall allow same to roam at large within the corporate limits of the town. The animal control officer may apprehend and impound any livestock, poultry, or domestic rabbits roaming at large, contrary to the provisions of this section. An owner reclaiming such animals shall pay the impounded fees set forth in section 601100 of this chapter and any applicable boarding fees. Livestock, poultry, or domestic rabbits that are impounded shall be kept and maintained at a town authorized pound for a minimum of 72 hours. Any of these animals not claimed by the owner or other authorized person by expiration of the impoundment period may be sold. I listed both of these because they're both listed in Chapter 6, just to give you an idea. And Chapter 6, again, is regarding enforcement, regulation, licensing, in that regard in terms of the supervision. Chapter 6 and the animal control officer are governed by the police department. On to Chapter 13 and its purpose. This chapter was adopted for the purpose of achieving adequate light, air, safety from fire and other dangers, conserving and protecting land building values in the town of Prescott Valley, preserving the aesthetic beauty of the community, reducing and avoiding congestion in public right-of-ways, and promoting the public health, safety, comfort, morals, and welfare of the town of Prescott Valley. Chapter 13's purpose is zoning. The definition of Chapter 13 livestock is as follows. Definition for Chapter 13 livestock includes horses, ponies, mules, cows, goats, sheep, llamas, any other large animals, poultry, domestic rabbits, chinchillas, chickens, turkeys, pheasants, geese, ducks, pigeons, or any other fowl, birds, or rodents that are customarily raised for food, profit, or pleasure. Under Chapter 13, 21150, livestock privileges, it reads, except in agricultural districts, livestock as defined in Article 1302 shall only be allowed on lots which are 1 acre or larger in size and shall be limited to 2 such animals per acre except as follows. No animal shall be allowed in the town of Prescott Valley in contravention of existing restrictive covenants. and B, all subject animals or such animals, where permitted, shall be kept in conformance with Chapter 6 of the Town Code of the Town of Prescott Valley. I read those to you to explain the purpose, and essentially what I'm summing up here is that Chapter 6 and Chapter 13 have different purposes. 13 is for what is allowable in zones, and Chapter 6 is the control, licensing, and the code or the enforcement end of livestock for the Town of Prescott Valley. That being said, going to the Chapter 1 conflicting provisions of Chapter 1, if the provisions of different chapters of this code conflict with or contravene each other, the provisions of each chapter shall prevail as to all matters and questions growing out of the subject matter of such chapter. Finding facts. Chapters 6 and 13 have different intended purposes in terms of the regulation of livestock within the Town of Prescott Valley. Chapter 6 speaks to the regulation of control of livestock, while Chapter 13 outlines the allowable uses within each respective zone. Town Code 13-21-150, livestock privileges, does not allow this use in the R1MH zoning district. Due to the facts noted above, staff recommends the board to affirm the interpretation of livestock definition, Chapter 13, as it relates to Article 13-21-150, livestock privileges. I failed to usher these along. I had so much to read. I apologize for that. In addition to the definitions, the last page is just showing the timeline for all of the violations that were sent to Mr. Teal, which in turn presented this interpretation.
I will open the matter to questions from the board.
I have to make my recommendation, I believe.
I beg your pardon.
I think I have to make the recommendation still.
I beg your pardon. Proceed.
Ma'am, thank you. Due to the facts noted above, staff recommends the board to affirm the interpretation of the livestock definition of Chapter 13 as it relates to Article 13-21-150, livestock privileges. Thank you.
Have I questions from my fellow board members?
I've got one. 13-21-150A, it says no animals shall be allowed in the Town of Prescott Valley in contravention of existing restrictive covenants, and I'm assuming that a restrictive covenant has been applied to zoning R1MH.
Yes, sir. It's not an allowable use in the zone in which Mr. Teal resides. Keeping the livestock in question is not allowable, and it's not permittable in the zoning that he resides in.
What sort of livestock was being kept on the property?
It's a chicken coop, sir.
Thank you.
Would the applicant care to address the board?
Good evening, board. My name is Adam Teal, 4761 North Carla Vista Drive. I appreciate it. Thank you. It is 4 chickens that we have out back of our house. I would agree with that presentation. That is what the zoning law says. What I would ask from the board and maybe the Department of Zoning is when it comes to things of this nature, maybe make it a little more easily understandable for everyday citizens. Now, I would like to note that I do work in aviation. I am diligent in my paperwork, and I have to answer to the federal government every day. So I did read Chapter 6 because my first thought was, what is livestock? I understand that I cannot have livestock in Prescott Valley. It's not Chino or May or what have you. So when I saw the definition of livestock in Chapter 6 and I didn't see chickens, that was mine. Oh, okay, I think I can have 4 chickens outside, behind my house. I don't think anybody's going to say anything about that. And I did my due diligence and asked my neighbors, the people in my neighborhood. I said, would you mind if got these chickens, and they said, that's totally fine. We love fresh eggs, as do I. So that was my intention, and that was the reason why I went forth in doing this. If I didn't think it was legal in the beginning, if I didn't think that, I would get in trouble, I wouldn't have done it. That's not my MO. I haven't gotten a speeding ticket in the past 3 years. The law is the law, and that's why we have it, right? So that's pretty much all I have to say, and I appreciate everybody's time this evening.
Thank you. Have we any public comment on the application? The interpretation, I beg your pardon.
My name's Melanie Cray. I'm Adam's wife. Do you mind if I just make one comment?
We are happy to hear from you.
Thank you. Like he said, we're not necessarily arguing the law itself, more the interpretation that we misunderstood. And we're just asking for leniency because it's not the most easily understandable. We did what we thought was logical, and we went to the section for animals, read the definition of livestock, and interpreted it the way that we believed was correct. So we're just asking for leniency on the interpretation. And we would be happy to get written statements from our neighbors if that would help with their permission. That they agreed before that we did bring the chickens home. We just didn't necessarily want to bother our neighbors with this ahead of time.
Thank you. Hearing no further public comment, I will bring the matter back to the board for discussion. Fellow members? Hearing no discussion, I will preface my motion with, it is not within our purview to change zoning. So I will move I'm going to need help with what I'm going to propose here because they wanted an interpretation and we have it. Mr. Gonzalez, may we have guidance, please?
Yes, all we're asking is that you affirm town's interpretation that the fowl or the chickens are not allowed in that zoning district. So if you would make a motion to uphold the staff's interpretation that they are prohibited in the R1L zoning district.
Thank you.
And I just want to get some clarification on what you're saying. So,
Yes.
in a sense, essentially what you're saying is that we should be looking at Chapter 13.
That is correct, for the
And
interpretation.
For the interpretation of the definition of livestock.
Correct.
Okay. And I think that makes sense based upon Chapter 6 is dealing with animals. We deal with zoning issues, which is Chapter 13.
That is correct, yes. And they were cited under Chapter 13 and not 6.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I agree. Any action by animal control is not in the purview of this board. We have absolutely nothing to do with that. So that said, I would move that we uphold the interpretation of livestock definition of Chapter 13 as it relates to Article 1321-150, livestock privileges. May I have a second?
Second.
May we have a voice vote, please?
Member Carson?
Yes.
Member Kunish?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Van Boning?
Yes.
Chairperson Shimon?
Yes. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the Board of Adjustment at this time? Hearing no public comment and having no further business, I'll accept a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
followed by a voice call vote.
Member Carson?
Yes.
Member Kunish?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Van Boning?
Yes.
Chairperson Shimon?
Yes. This meeting of the Prescott Valley Board of Adjustment is adjourned.